Natasha and thank you so much for joining me. In today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to create a drop shadow, but more importantly, how to create a darker drop shadow. It's really easy to create a lighter one, but I want to create a darker shadow behind our words today. So I'm going to take a solid stamp. Now, today's one is going to be thank you from my favorite things. You might have a solid image. It might be some foliage, some leaves. It might be a heart. It might be, anything solid. Anything silhouette solid is going to work for this. I am just choosing to use the words thank you. We are creating a beautiful, easy, simple card today, but it is going to have some really cool drop shadows in it. So I'm going to start off with having my stamp roughly in the middle. I want 3 of these to fit, and I'm pretty sure 3 of them fit, but I'm not a big fan of measuring. So we're just sort of going to wing it. Now, as for inks today, I'm going to be using a darker and a lighter of each shade. Now, this really isn't necessary. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to do this today. And you could also just use one color for all 3, but I wanted to make all 3 thank yous different colors. So just to make it, a little more confusing or difficult. But nonetheless, really what's easiest is to have a dark and a light color. Now, as I said, we want to create a darker drop shadow on this lettering. So I want you to take your darker of the 2 colors. If you're just doing this with one single color, then obviously you can just do it with that. It's fine. But I'm taking the darker of the 2 colors here. Now, all of my ink colors are listed below in the description box below this video in case you want to check them out. But I'm just making sure my cardstock, none of it is, none of that masking is going to get in the way of it. I am stamping down pretty solidly. Just make sure that it's nice and I've got contact everywhere. Again, this is my darker color of the 2. If you want it even darker because you don't have a huge range of inks like I don't, then you can stamp this twice, and you will obviously, if you add twice the amount of ink, it's going to become darker each time you stamp on top of it and add another layer. So this is relatively a good shade of darkish blue at the moment, or turquoise maybe even. And then I'm going to create the drop shadow, shift this over to the right and down just a fraction, like just a fraction. Then I'm going to take my lighter color of the ink and I'm going to stamp. So it is going to, it's kind of going to look like you've got double vision for a minute. It's going to stamp up and to the left a little bit. So it sort of looks a little blurry at the moment, but the shadow will become really obvious soon. So this is the lighter of the 2 colors. Then I'm going to take some Unicorn Hero Arts white ink. Now this is a pigment ink, and this is how we're going to create that much lighter color, but we're going to create it sort of the solid word, because at the moment it looks like the drop shadow is sort of to the left and up above, but sort of not very clear. Whereas we want there to be a darker drop shadow to the right and down. So by adding that ink, you can now see, wait till it dries, wait till it's nice and even, but you can now see that we've got that beautiful sort of drop shadow off to the right. So I'm going to do this a couple of times over so that you can see it. I've moved it up. I'm now moving on to the greens. This is my darker of the 2 greens that I am using. And remember, this is creating the shadow. So I stamp this one down, make sure you get a really nice clean contact, give it a minute for the ink to soak into the paper. Don't be in a huge rush to keep opening and shutting the door, especially if you're using a stamping platform. If you're using an acrylic block, then that is also possible because you can see through everything. Doing this with an acrylic block is by no means impossible. It's very possible. You just have to line them up by getting your head in right in and above it. And of course, that's a little tricky when I am filming as well. Then I'm going to take the lighter color now. You saw that I just shifted it to the left and down, and if you look closely you can see that there is that sort of lighter shadow up to the left and above. I want to create the darker shadow down to the right. So again, I'm going to take my Hero Arts Unicorn white ink and stamp down exactly on top of the lighter colored ink. So I'm not shifting it for a second time. I just stamp directly on top of the second colour, and you can see it'll even out, but it creates that darker drop shadow to the right. Now this is just such a fun technique. As I said, you can do this with any shape. It doesn't have to be a word. It can be anything, and you could do all sorts of hearts and different pinks and oranges and yellows. You could do, I mean, as I said, it's absolutely endless. As long as you've got something a little bold and a solid stamp or a little silhouette sort of style, it's going to work. So I've stamped in my dark blue, and I'm actually going to stamp it twice, so it's an even darker blue, and then shift it just a tiny bit. Now, I highly recommend having a play on a scrap piece of paper as to how far you want to move your drop shadow, because it will surprise you just how little you have to move it to get a really cool shadow, and sometimes it's very easy to move it too far. So by all means, I would recommend giving it a go first, and sort of experimenting with how much you need to move it. Now you can see, as I said, that drop shadow at the moment is actually to the left and above, because that's the lighter part of it. Whereas we want to create a nice solid shadow down to the right, and I want the shadow to be darker. So that's why I then add the pigment ink. Now, if you only had the one color of ink, I would stamp the dark, like the one color down first, then move your piece of paper, and then stamp the exact same color again where it's going to become your drop shadow, and then without moving the paper, you would then stamp the white on top of that second stamping that you did, and of course that's going to create, if you add white on top of it, it's going to create a lighter layer, and there you go. So that is how I create a darker drop shadow out on my solid images, and we've done it with sentiment today. But thank you. So I'm just going to trim the sides down, depending on what size your sentiment is or your silhouette shape. I mean, you could obviously trim all four to give a nice border frame. This one was long enough that I really just needed to trim the sides. As you can see, I've gone with the blues and greens sort of look, and although I don't have any matching cardstocks for the colours I used, I do have some Emerald Coast cardstock, which is just sort of like almost a green, but sort of a dark turquoisey colour. And I was thinking about putting in one of the little sub-sentiments, because the stamp set comes with lots and lots of gorgeous little sub-sentiments, but I actually decided against it. The writing was already enough. I didn't want to take away from what we had created, and I think that pop of the green down the sides, that greeny blue turquoise, is just beautiful. This card is absolutely stunning. And then for a really simple, easy card like this that is very generic and can be used in lots of ways, I do add something into the center. Now, I used to make these myself, I'll tell you, but since I found a company that actually creates them, and you don't need these at all, but it's just sort of the quick and easy way to do it. You can make them yourself, as I said I used to. I've added on a couple enamel dots, but inside of this, because the cardstock that I've used, it's not dark, and I do think you could write on this with a normal pen really, really easily, but I do like to add in a little just something in the center to make it really easy to see, and so no one has to worry about what kind of pen to use. So just usually a piece of white cardstock. It can be any size. I've found it doesn't always have to be perfect to fit the background. You know, for example, these cards are 4.25 by 5.5 inches. You don't have to have it, you know, a nice even frame around it. I'm just using a square scrap of cardstock. You can round the corners if you like. But as I said, I really love the idea with generic cards that we can reuse them more than one time. Often that can look like either adding in a couple of spare pieces that people can tear off from the insides. You can also do like sticky notes as well. But I have found that these Pink and Main share the joy sticky notes. And I really love the little message that is on these. You can pause it to read, but essentially it just says that this is a great way that you can use these cards over and over again, or at least a couple of times, and more people can get the joy out of them. So obviously I've used these, but they come in a good pad of plenty. I like to add in at least a couple, usually 2 or 3 I find is a nice amount to add to the inside of my card, and then that way you can write on it one time, and then the recipient can then tear off the top one. It's just a sticky note, and then they can write on the next one, and then the next recipient can also write on that white piece of cardstock we've got in the center. I do this for just really generic cards that I think could be used for so many different people and different occasions. I hope you enjoyed this video of trying to create that beautiful darker drop shadow, and I really love these easy cards to create. So if you love them too, please subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in